Missed
Okay.
you last week.
Yes. Well, welcome everyone to Virtual Girls Night Out. It is our pleasure to have Ms. Joyce here on with us. She is one of our Flutter members, and I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about herself and all the things that she has done. But, you know, today is Veterans Day, and so we thought it would be fitting to have one of our very own veterans as our member highlight this week. So Joyce has lived a very interesting life. And hey, Tracy, she has really she's got an interesting story. And right when you think you've heard it all, she comes out with something new. So so we're just really excited to have her in the Flutter. She's a huge blessing and one of our prayer warriors for the Flutter. She actually prays for everyone in the Flutter. She is on our intercessory team, and so we're so thankful to have her, praying for all of us and that all of our transformations taking place. And so without further ado, Joyce, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I guess I'm the girl that didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up. So that's why there's so much on my bio. I grew up in South Dakota as a country girl and moved to Washington State to go to nursing school. So I have always called myself a country girl become citified. And then I was a nurse because at the time I graduated from high school, there were only two options for women, and I didn't want to be a teacher, so I decided to be a nurse, and I think that's where God wanted me anyway, because I want to work with and help people, and it's kind of my automatic, it's my basic core personality is to be helping others. So, but that wasn't enough for me, so I went in the military, but I waited till after they would have paid for school, but I waited till after they offered to pay for school to go in. And I was on active duty for 3 years, and then I did the rest of my time in the reserves, but I did about 2.5 more years of active duty time in the reserves. So I was nursing as a registered nurse from 76 until just last year, some of it on active duty, the remainder on reserve duty while I worked in the operating room at a hospital in Tacoma. And that wasn't enough. I got bored for a couple of years, so I left the hospital and went to the fire department as a firefighter paramedic for 6 years. And then I got married. And then I had a family in my 30s, and that was the hardest job I ever had, but probably the most rewarding, and it still continues, obviously. Even when they're adults, can't wait for them to grow up, and then they're adults, and then you worry about them even more because you can't do anything about it.
Right. That's right.
So I intended to work for a couple more years, but moved down here last year to support our son and daughter here in Florida because my grandson, who was then 11, needed a kidney transplant, and his mother was the donor. So I say God gave me a reason to retire. And I came down and I was Nana nurse for about 6.5 months until they pretty much got settled back into their routine life. And now I'm learning how to be retired, and it's busier than ever. So I'm not sure I'm learning that too well yet. I learned about the Flutter from Bernita. And Bernita's been a dear friend for many, many years in Tacoma. Angela came to our church in September, was it September? 2017, and talked to all of us a bit about being Wonder Woman and our aha moments and spinning into our new reality. And I had a clarity call with Angela that year, but then 2018 came along and I kind of fell out of the picture for a while because it was a little crazy moving down here. And then Angela told me about the Flutter, So I joined in the end of July, middle of July, and I'm learning how to focus on me, take care of me, and try to not stop taking care of others, but take care of me as well as I take care of others. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. That's a great thing to incorporate into your life. So what difference is that making in your life?
Well, you're a good challenger. She's pulling me out of my focusing on everybody else and trying to focus on dealing with the past. I'm a good stuffer, and I have stuffed a lot of stuff for a lot of time. I'm probably one of the older people on here, so I'm really good at stuffing it down. And sometimes you don't want to pull all that stuff back out, but slowly but surely I'm pulling it back out and refocusing on control, handling, being responsible for me and not responsible for others' feelings. And my whole focus most of my life is making sure everybody else is okay. So it's kind of hard to take the focus off of feeling, making sure everybody else feels good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's back there going,
Yeah. That's a big one. Not letting go of that, of worrying about feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness.
Especially the kids, the adult kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, if you have any kind of guilt, that goes along with that, then if they feel bad or if they get mad or, if they're suffering in any way, then we feel guilt, which then it activates that feeling responsible for them even more. And, and it just causes, it's too much pressure. Our bodies were not designed to handle that kind of pressure. So, so we've done some coaching together. What have been some of your biggest takeaways?
Well, getting rid of the guilt, that's a big focus right now, and letting go of that. And it's a day-to-day thing. Just today, I asked you to postpone because of the week, and first thing she said to me, focus on letting go, don't feel the guilt. So it made me realize that I'm still a long ways to go on feeling the guilt. But and I'm going back to family and celebrate the last living relative of the generation above me, who was 97. So it's a good thing, and it's just those things aren't timed. So I was feeling guilty about not being here with company and not doing what I was supposed to do for the flutter and not doing what I was supposed to do for coaching. But that's my focus this week, is to quit feeling guilty. Just do it.
Yeah, just living in the moment and just gratitude for just what's happening right in the moment. It's wow, it's just so impactful. Kind of just brings you back.
I think the big thing I've been focusing on since I joined was to rise and being resilient. And I think that I've been through enough and done so many different things, and all of those things, when you change into a new career, it can be scary and challenging, but I've always done it. So I think I'm quite resilient, even though I don't give myself credit for that sometimes. And I feel like I'm spirit-led, but the other part that I need to focus on is being intentional and being empowered. So that's my part of that. And then going through the cocoon. So right now I'm in the cocoon and digging out all that stuff I've stuffed for so long.
Woo! Yes, love it. What would be just a word of encouragement or word of advice that you would leave for the ladies?
Well, not to be Nike, but just do it. Just do it. I think when you made that call, I don't remember if, I think it was a Wednesday. It was in the middle of the week. It wasn't the usual time that you came on. And I was sitting at the beach waiting for my daughter's plane to take off. And you really touched a core in me with that call and made me realize quit procrastinating, quit using excuses, quit handing my power over to everybody else, and specifically just sat by the beach that day. And I decided I need to spend some more time, just quiet time at the beach, and just do it. And Pastor said at church yesterday or the other day, every time God makes a move, Satan makes a move. So as soon as I started to just do it, then boom, 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 he threw a whole bunch more balls to juggle in this last week, but I'm going to keep just doing it.
Real quick, one more question as we close this portion out. What part of your service to our country and to all of us, what did that prepare you for?
I was a very, very, very shy, scared young girl coming out of school, high school, and even though I'd been through nursing school, I was still very insecure in my world, even though I was a nurse. And going into the military, being a registered nurse in the military and an officer, you have two separate careers. So you're dealing with rising up in the roles of an officer, but also doing your job as a registered nurse. And dealing with a lot of interns and residents as doctors, I realized as a nurse I was leading them sometimes, which really scared me, but made me realize I needed to step up to the plate. And it also made me stronger and made me see that I could do more. And also being in the military, I saw the world that growing up in the country, I never dreamed that I would see anything outside of 4 states. So I've seen a lot of the world as a result of being in the military, and it's brought a huge world down into a community. I have a community, a family within the military that's around the world and given me another family. I have about 6 different families. My immediate core family, my Air Force family, my work family, my military fire department family, and my church family. So I have a pretty wide variety of friends and families.
And the Flutter family. And your Flutter family.
A Flutter family. Yeah, I've got 7 now. Exactly.
That's awesome.
So Joyce,
Yes.
Nicole, first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We all appreciate your service and what you've done for all of us so that we can live the life that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be referring you now as Major Houlihan? Other people are not laughing. Like, am I aging myself here?
I'm going to leave that one alone.
I get it.
When I was flying, I did most of my reserve time as a flight nurse. So I flew. That's when I got to start to see the world. And we used to say we worked hard, but we played hard. And we did. We played hard, but we worked very hard. And then I went to Desert Storm in 1991. That was the year that didn't fit in my life, because that's what reservists do. They get called to active duty. So I was at Desert Storm in Germany, but God was with me every step of the way, because I can't tell you how many times I handed the beeper off to the next crew. 10 minutes later, they got alerted to go down to Iraq to pick up a plain and patient. So
Mm.
I never ended up in the desert. I just sat alert a lot, and I was the wing commander of my little group of people, and I felt like I was a mom to 45 people. Half of them were older than me. But I was the commander of the group, so I got to deal with all the problems and the worries and I just became mom again.
So if you could also, I'm reading a book right now that was recommended to me, and something that came across to me as you were talking was that you are, and don't take this the wrong way because I don't mean it in a bad way, but you're sort of minimizing what you've done, and you should be dang proud of yourself. You should take credit for every bit of that. I'm not exactly sure why you feel guilty. I know you're kind of spread pretty thin, but you should be very proud of what you are and not minimize all of you that you've accomplished, because most of us haven't done those things.
Well, I've had more than 2 people tell me I need to write a book. So it's like, okay, what do I write a book on each part of my life? Because I have about 4 different careers, and I do know that I've been very blessed to have experienced that much in my life. I probably do minimize it because I don't like being in the spotlight. This is difficult for me because I'd rather be in the background, being the Martha, doing all the work and keeping everything going. But I just never focused on me being anybody special. I just tried to do the best I could at each job I did. And a lot of it was just, I haven't done this before. I need to prove to myself and the world that I can do it. When I went on the fire department, it was a challenge because I was working in the emergency room and the firefighters were bringing in their patients, and it was opening up to women, and the men were mad that women were coming on the fire department. They didn't want them there. You don't belong there. Women can't do this job. And I looked at him, I said, what do you mean they can't do that job? You couldn't do my job. And I said, could you do this one? That's what the military did for me when I was on active duty. It gave me a voice because I had to have a voice as an officer leading people. I needed to speak up, and I would never speak up before then. And the firefighters saying that I didn't belong there was kind of a challenge to this Norwegian. You don't tell me I can't do anything. You tell me I can't do it, I'm going to go do it whether I want to or not, just to prove you wrong. And that's kind of how I ended up on the fire department. I really wanted to be a paramedic, and that was the best paying job for a paramedic. I didn't want to fight fires, but you had to be a firefighter first to be a paramedic. So I wasn't thrilled about going into burning buildings. I much preferred taking the rescue rig and driving to help somebody in an emergency setting. So
Wow.
I wasn't there for the fires like most of the men. I was there for the rescue part.
Wow.
Well, every time a man tells me that I can't do something, like I shouldn't be doing something that they're doing, I just go, well, can you have a baby?
Good one. Good one.
Wouldn't be here without a woman, would you? No.
That's true. That's true.
Well, that is amazing, Joyce. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And how many are surprised at just all the things that she's done, and would have never thought, that she had so much history and experience behind her. So, that's really neat that, that you've just lived a full life and, have been brave in your endeavors, feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
That's it's kind of for me, when I'm reading all of this and doing the work, why do I question whether I can do this? I have done it at least 4 times, and I've done what I thought couldn't be done at least 4 times, so I shouldn't doubt myself.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Good takeaway. Good takeaway. So, and we talk about this sometimes, that, a lot of times we ask ourselves why, why do I do this or why do I do that? And why is a low quality question. So if you ask a low quality question, you're going to get a low quality answer. So asking why, it a little more pointless if even if you understand why. And so, finding that question that will, well, now that I know this, what can I do moving forward, to make the changes. So, well, that's awesome. Speaking of that, that is a perfect segue right into our lesson. I'm going to do a screen share here. Okay. So I'm going to have you mute your mics just for a few minutes, and then I'll bring everybody back on, and we will have a little discussion. So we are moving right along. This is inside of the Flutter. If you have not gotten in the Flutter yet, this is actually, you go to www.jointheflutter.com. Make sure you've got your password and username set up. And then we have gone through the lessons for stage 1 in the caterpillar, and we are now in stage 2. And so what I want to show you is this is the video right here that for our next module that we're going to do, our lesson for tonight. And these are coming from the module Mindsets of a Confident Woman. And this is lesson 6, and it is toward pleasure versus avoiding pain. So you need to make sure you go through all of these to graduate the next level. So I want to go through these with you, and then all you have to do is just go back and maybe listen as a refresher and then do the homework, and then you can count it as done. So here is the video. If you're driving, we have it on audio, so you can just listen to it in the car if you want to. Here is your homework. This is the downloadable printable version, and then this is just if you want to write it in your notebook. So we are going to take a look today at the slide deck, and I just want to go over this with you. So Mindsets of a Confident Woman, lesson 6, toward pleasure versus avoiding pain. So these are just different mindsets that as we adopt new mindsets from the growth mindset perspective, they will help us to be more effective in life. And so remember that you are a powerful chooser. You live in reality. You were created to thrive versus just survive. A lot of the things that cause us suffering or angst, they're because they're linked to just a survival mindset in some way. So we've talked about being responsible for you and to others, like we talked about in the opening, not feeling responsible for the happiness of other people. And then today, I want to talk about running toward pleasure instead of away from pain. I don't know about you, but I have been asked multiple times, especially, before I learned about coaching and I learned about all this, someone would ask me, what do you want? And I could tell them very clearly what I don't want. But I could not tell them as clearly what I did want. So as human beings, we only have 2 motivations. We're either running toward pleasure or going after what we want, or we're avoiding some pain or discomfort. So if you find yourself losing motivation, you're probably avoiding some sort of pain or some sort of discomfort. And it is a survival mindset. It becomes, mindset that helps us just to survive something. But when you start to commit to thriving, then you have an opportunity to take a look at, okay, what are the things I've been avoiding, and what are the things that I can start running after? When you start getting clear about what you want and going after that, boy, that really opens up life, and it opens up new possibilities and new options. So, what pain are you avoiding? Fear is an avoidance of some pain, and it's usually not real pain that we're avoiding. It's the perception of pain. So in other words, like avoiding guilt or avoiding rejection or something like that. So it's really just the perception of pain, not the real pain itself. So we subconsciously, we consider, between the two, either short-term or long-term pain, either short-term or long-term pleasure, but short-term wins every time. And so, but remember, this is all subconsciously. So because your brain's job is to protect you, and your brain's job is to keep you comfortable. And so short-term wins over long-term, and then emotion trumps logic. That's why what you feel, it really does matter. So instead of just defaulting to avoiding some short-term pain, if you start to consciously choose long-term pleasure, because remember, you are the powerful chooser, you're not a victim to your default settings, then if avoiding pain is your motivation, then the moment that the threat is gone, you'll lose the motivation. You'll go back to your comfort zone. So running from something, it keeps you in a state of stress and anxiety also. So I might be jumping ahead of myself here, but if you chase something, or if something is chasing you, what is the automatic instinct? It is to run. And so, but here's what I want you to know is that whatever you're avoiding, you're focusing on. And so you move in the direction of whatever you're focusing on. So if you're avoiding fear, you're still focusing on fear. So you keep moving in the direction of fear and focusing on fear. So then you have more fear. So, some people say that fear is the opposite of faith, but I believe that fear is faith in action. Fear is actually just the negative. It's faith for the negative. Even in Job in the Bible, he said, the thing that I've feared the most has come upon me. So when fear is your motivation, you're focusing on fear. And you move in the direction of your vision, because that's what you're focusing on. But it is time to create a shift. It's time to go after what you want. So if you remember in Summon to Soar, the book, Queen Esther, here she was in the kingdom. She was dressed in her royal garb. She had her beautiful queenly garb on, her gown. She was wearing the crown at the time. And, she found out through her uncle that her people were about to be annihilated. He said, you have to do something. So she throws a banquet for the king. And, he says, I want you to know that, what do you want? He said, I love you so much, like up to half the kingdom, it's yours. And what does she do? She gets on the ground, and you can read this in the book of Esther. She gets on the ground and she's throwing a fit, basically. And she's kicking and screaming, and she's crying, and she's wanting the king to fix it. And then something so interesting happens, that the king extends the golden scepter to her, and he says, get up. And he said, go write it the way you want it to look. So, there have been times, I think, where so many times we're waiting on God, and God is waiting on us. And he's extended the golden scepter and says, go write it the way you want it to look. What do you want? But so many times we're afraid to write what we want, because I hear women say, well, what if it's not God's will? Well, why is God going to put desires in your heart that he hasn't aligned with your purpose? You know, is he so big that because that is he so in touch with emotions that your purpose has to be out of alignment with what you want and what you desire and what you love? I don't think so. I believe that your wants, desires, all the things that you long for, the things that you love, think those were things that were put inside of you that support your purpose. And so, you know, what you want, what you long for, that's a good indication of why you're here, what you're here to do. But again, you know, as women, as I talk to women, they feel a lot of guilt around going after what they want, being afraid that that's not what God wants. But I believe that, you know, unless there's a real direction there, and you know that I'm called to lay this down, I think that a good indication of what you're here to do, if you start to get in touch with what it is you want. You know, I believe that that's a message that God has given me to speak to women is, you know, go write it the way you want it to look. You know, I had spent my entire life helping everybody else get what they wanted. And when I went through my divorce and lost everything, I was, you know, went from preaching in the pulpit to selling windows door to door. You know, I went from a beautiful Texas ranch to living on the floor of an apartment. I went from wearing a Rolex with diamonds to standing in the food stamp line. And I met a life coach. Didn't know what a life coach was, but I met a life coach, and she asked me, she said, what do you want? And I had no idea. I didn't have a clue. So, you know, this whole journey of discovering what I wanted and what I wanted it to look like, it's taken me some time to, you know, be brave enough to be bold enough to ask for what I want. But when we don't ask for what we want, then we end up manipulating to get what we want. So I'm sure you've heard this from me before, but your why is always more important than your what. So, you know, if you were taking a walk with one of your kids, and you come up to a stoplight, and that you're waiting for the crosswalk to say walk before you cross the street. And all of a sudden you're just standing there with one of your kids and you just shove them to the ground. Are you a bad parent? Well, your why is more important than your what. Why you shoved them to the ground really determines if you're a bad parent or not. Because if you did it for no reason, then yeah, I would say you're probably a bad parent. But if you did it because you saw an out of control car coming right at them and you pushed them out of the way to save their life, then you're a hero. You're the best parent ever. So your why is always more important than your what. So what do you really want? And why do you want that? Because in most cases, what you want is linked. It comes from your desires. It comes from your personality. It comes from your gifting, your talents. And so your why, when you know that your why is because of the call that's on your life, you know, getting in the practice of getting clear about what you want, it's life changing. And a good way to practice this is you know, when somebody says, well, where do you want to go eat? Instead of saying, well, I don't know, you know, or, you know, what color should we make this? I don't know. What do you want? You know, I had to get in the habit of just saying, I want to go eat here. And then I was always so worried that if I chose where we were going to eat and then everybody else didn't like it, then I would feel responsible for their feelings and I would feel guilty. So I let everybody else choose. So I got in this negative cycle. So you can see how all of these mindsets start to really work together and support one another the more we get into this. So they're all tied together. So women are 50% less likely to ask for what they want than men. Women are afraid to ask for what they want because they feel guilty, because they're afraid to hear no. You don't want to be a bother. You assume that getting what you want, it detracts from others getting what they want. But sometimes you getting what you want helps you to help other people get what they want. You neglect yourself, and then this teaches everyone else around you to treat you the same way, or you feel responsible for the feelings of others. You know, if they feel, you might feel, well, I'm afraid to ask for what I want. They might feel jealous. Not, you know, letting go of feeling responsible for their feelings. If they feel jealous, that's something they need to deal with. So as a powerful chooser, what have you been getting? What if, sorry, let me say this again. What if what you've been getting, okay, why can I not read this sentence? What is you, that's not right. What if you've been getting exactly what you've been asking for? There we go, I said it right. What if you've been getting exactly what you've been asking for, or should I say settling for? When you don't ask for what you want, you manipulate with your emotions to get what you want. You withhold, you suppress your wants, needs, and desires. You don't feel appreciated. You expect others to be mind readers, and you don't stand in your values, so you devalue yourself. But abundance is the full cycle of giving and receiving. So just as much as you feel it's important for you to give to others, it is the full cycle of abundance is giving and receiving. So receiving is equally as important as giving. So how do you go after what you want? How do you go after what you want? Decide what you want. That's number one. Decide what you want. And sometimes it's just deciding. Dream build. Ask for what you want. Practice receiving. And then if you don't get what you've asked for, learn the art of negotiation instead of pouting. There's a novel idea. So you can find the homework here, and you can, you know, answer these questions. These would be great for journaling, but this is really, really powerful stuff here. So I'm going to stop the screen share and come back on. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to open it up for some discussion. Okay, go ahead and unmute your mics, and you can come back on camera if you want.
So I have a comment about this, Angela, about asking what you want, asking for what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been having a discussion with my boss, who is a male, and I started in August, and I specifically knew that my health insurance for my kids was going to cost more money. I just didn't realize that it was going to be as expensive as it was. So my base salary was increased by what I thought was going to be a certain amount. Anyway, so I'm not making as much money as I thought that it would, and it's not going as far as I thought that it would. So when I have a conversation with him and I say, you know what, I really need to make more money. I'm in control of making my own money because I'm in sales, but I need to make more money, so I need help with that. And he came back to me and he said, well, I know I've paid you more than what you were making before to cover for the health insurance, so you should be okay. No, I need to make more money. I told him point blank, I need to make more money. And it was like he came back and said, no, you don't. So how do you be more demanding in that instance? Or it's like, no, you're in control of how much money I make, and I need to make more money. I have kids to support, dude.
So interesting that you brought this up. So I've been listening on training, sales training. And one of the things that she said today that was really impactful to me is she said that usually the number one excuse people say is, I don't have the money. And we're going to actually get into this teaching. We're going to get into these teachings in the weeks to come. They're really, oh my gosh, they're so powerful. These are going to blow your mind. I mean, just writing these teachings changed everything for me. But time and money are what we always use as our two biggest excuses. And so she was saying how, and so we're going to talk about, we're going to have teachings on how time and money are not more powerful than we are, that we are, as the powerful choosers. We're going to talk about how to use optimization and financial literacy to get what we want. So anyway, but she was referring to the whole conversation that someone says, I don't have the money. It's either one of two things, that either they truly do not, they're on digging for quarters in their couch or something like that. Or she said, you have not, as the person, as the seller, you have not created enough value around what it is you're offering. So what do you hear me saying that?
I haven't shown that I have enough value to him for him to pay me more money. I don't.
Okay. I mean, I think that's one aspect of it. Or what else? What else? What other value maybe could you expand?
I'm not sure that I know the answer to that. I've heard what you're saying before, that in the different points of selling and how to sell. My point was that I've asked, I have stood up for myself, and I have asked specifically, and I wasn't asking for him to give me more money. I was asking for him to give me the tools to help me make more money, which was the point. But it was like, when you ask and you don't get when you do stand up for yourself and you don't get the answers that you want, then what? You just keep asking?
Well, so you're selling an idea to him. And so thinking about ways that you can show him the value of whatever it is you're asking him, helping you, maybe not giving you the more money, but helping him by showing the value of him giving you what you want. Number one, I think, is one thing that you could do, which would take some, I know we may not come up with the answer for that, but at least that would get you moving in a direction. And then the other thing is, if you don't get what you want, is to learn the art of negotiation. And so, because for him, it's all about what's in it for him.
Right. And the more I sell, the better he looks.
And so finding that, that's your in, and building a story around that. Not building a story around, look, I need more money to pay for my kids. Building the story around him. to where, you know, you're benefiting, you're still getting the same benefits, but you're building the story for him around him and his benefits, and negotiating, like maybe studying, you know, negotiating from that standpoint. Somebody else have a comment about that?
Well, when he responded the way he did to you, was he listening to you and was he thinking that you were just asking him to give you more money and not hearing what you were really asking for, that you wanted to learn how to make more money? It sounds like he shut you down immediately.
He did, and the point of it is that they haven't given me they haven't given me the tools that I need to be successful. And the more successful I am, the better he's going to look. But they are very slow in giving me the tools that I need. And I was just asking for him to hurry up and give me the tools that I need so that I could make more money. I'm like, not asking for him to give me more money. I'm asking for him to help me, to give me what I need to be successful.
So help me help you.
Right.
So just build the story around that for him. Like this, get into, you know, his head in a sense of like build your case around how it's going to benefit him. And and pain that he's going to feel by not helping you. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I'm looking at this from a hard-headed aspect of, you know, he hired me to help him sell his company. He should be utilizing me to make more money, and he's not.
Right. Lacey, did you have something to say? Okay.
No, I don't know enough about what she does.
I thought you looked like you had a comment or something.
No.
So exactly, I think you hit it on the head. So if looking at it from that vantage point, from your vantage point, is not getting you what you want, part of the art of negotiation is painting a picture of how much pain it's going to cause him to not give you what you want. And the more he delays, that's negotiation. So he said no. No is not an answer that you're willing to take. So you have to paint the picture for him of how much pain it is going to be for him, you know, to not work with you, and to reframe the story for him, because it's not your story that's going to move him to action. Obviously, you know, he doesn't, if he was compassionate, maybe your story would move him to action, but it's obviously not. So what is the story? How can you reframe the story for him? That number one really paints the picture of the pain that he will experience, knowing that he's probably avoiding, his motivation is probably to avoid pain, not to go after what he wants.
Okay.
So, I think it's going to take some thought and some investigation, but if you paint that picture and come at it from that perspective of the art, I'm going to negotiate because no is not acceptable. But you can't go in and demand. So the picture of, you know, telling him your story is not working. So you have to paint a new picture for him.
Got it.
That's what I would say.
I guess I just expect everyone to be as logical as I am. It's like, you hired me to do something and you're paying me. Help me do it.
But remember, emotion always outweighs logic. your personality is really, you're a very logical person. If he's not, then your logic means it's not enough to motivate him. Short-term pain will always outweigh long-term pleasure. That's people's first go-to. And then emotion will always outweigh logic. So what is going to move him? What emotion is going to move him, to action? And
His boss seeing that he's not successful.
okay, so paint the new picture that is going to speak to him. And I think you'll and say, okay, well, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, and negotiate. So we can talk more about that privately if you want.
Okay. Yep.
I think that would really, if you start thinking in that way and building a story around that, I think you'll have at least a better opportunity for success there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. One more question?
So then I'll ask a question to everyone. How do you usually react when you ask for something and you don't get it? Anybody?
I pout.
Good. Good answer.
But
I
that
think
doesn't.
that it wasn't meant for me, instead of thinking I deserved it.
Kind of give up on it.
Or get really frustrated and angry
Mm-hmm.
if I really want it.
And stuff it.
Stuff it, but wanting it. Stuff another piece in that volcano.
Yeah, so asking for what you want is really powerful. Before you can ask for what you have to start to dig, about what you want. And maybe you'll ask for something you think, it's not really what I wanted, well, then so who is willing to, Christy said, I probably find another way to get it or to make it happen. Okay. So, what is, give me a couple shout outs here. What's a way that you can, practice asking for what you want this week? Two people.
Well, I could finally talk with me as a student now, but I sent it in a long. Well, let me not say long. I wanted something, and I sent a message with point format, so easy to read, of what I wanted, and so far I've been getting it. Sometimes people don't hear you because they have a lot of things going on, and sometimes sitting down and putting it into words, where they can actually read it over several times, I've realized that might be sometimes more effective than speaking.
Okay, good. One more.
Also, I used to work in sales a long time ago, and I started out at 2,500 EC, which is less than $1,000 US, and then I would get like 8% commission. But after a while, I realized my bosses weren't like trying to take me on in terms of upping their sales, and I was actually bringing in more money into the company than they thought. So what I started doing was I started tracking on an Excel spreadsheet how much money I was bringing in, when they were paying, and started comparing it based on a month by month basis, and until I got their attention. And so they were like, oh, well, we're gonna raise you to 4,000 AC, and which was a good jump, based on my currency. But so that's what I did, because they weren't hearing me, and so I said, well, I had to show them my point. And then another thing too, what I did was I showed them just how well the competition was doing in comparison to us. When I wanted them to, open up a few more resources for me, and I said, hey, well, look at what the competition is doing in comparison to us. They're online. They don't just have a magazine. Sorry. So that's what I did. I gave them I showed them what the competition was doing, and I just showed them exactly what I was bringing in on a month-to-month basis, so that they can see they could have seen my value.
Awesome. That's good. That's good. So, even in the little things as you go forth this week, just practice asking for what you want. And even if you hear no, no is, when I sold windows door to door, they said like for every 10 no's, there's a yes. And so, sometimes it's just about being tenacious. And sometimes it's about, presenting it in a way that they see the value in your request. And, hearing no isn't going to hurt you. And maybe hearing no will help you be more creative. So there's a lot of benefits to hearing no. But you might just get what you asked for. So just get out there and practice asking for what you want. And just see what happens. So, well, I hope that you have found benefit in this tonight, and it's been great to see everybody. We'll see everybody on office hours Thursday afternoon. And thanks everybody for sharing your Monday evening with me. Put some feedback on Facebook. I would love for you to go leave a comment on Facebook, maybe like what your biggest takeaways were, something you learned, an aha moment from tonight. So everybody run over to the Flutter before you forget and post on Facebook, and I'll see you in the Flutter. Okay, love you all. Have a great night.
You too. Stay warm, everybody.
Good night.
Yes, good night.